On the bustling streets of Yokohama, a decade can pass in the blink of an eye. Time marches on and people come and go. But there are some things we refuse to let change, like the uncompromising flavor of our senbei and the place we hold in our hearts for our valued customers. At Ichiban Confections, your smile is our #1 priority. Eat at Ichiban's. We are Ichiban Holdings.
Once in a while, a game comes out that seems tailor-made with me in mind. Yakuza Like a Dragon is that game. Towards the end of 2020, I had a video planned where I'd name my personal game of the year and would then move on to a project I've been working on for a bit now. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, I decided to give Yakuza a try. 3 weeks later, I finally completed the game and loved every minute of it. Yakuza Like a Dragon is my game of the year for 2020, no question. In fact, it may be one of my favorite games in the past 10 years, and I don't say that often. Some of my favorite games took years to grow on me, but there's just something about Yakuza that made me fall in love instantly. I was hooked from the beginning, and I could not put it down until I was finished with the story. As much as I love Yakuza, I will admit this is probably going to be a hard sell for a lot of gamers. The reason for this is simple. To put it bluntly, Yakuza is at its core a turn-based JRPG and the 7th entry in the Yakuza franchise. In my experience, some people simply don't like turn-based combat mechanics. I also know people that will straight nope out of anything considered a JRPG, and being the 7th game in a long-running series, it can be an intimidating entry point. Today, I'm going to do my best to convey why I love this game and why you should give it a shot. If there is one game worth stepping out of your comfort zone for this year, Yakuza is the one. Yakuza Like a Dragon succeeds for 3 reasons: its story, style, and self-awareness. While all 3 intertwine, I'm going to break down each of these and how they work to make Yakuza a great game. Since Yakuza Like a Dragon is an RPG, the best way to start is the story. It's the year 2000, New Year's Eve. We're introduced to our main character, Ichiban Kasuga. Ichi is a 20-something member of the Arakawa family, a low-level Yakuza group. The story starts out as just another day in the life of a low-level Yakuza trying to make a name for himself. Ichi runs errands, makes collections, and basically does what his bosses tell him to. The thing is, Ichiban isn't what I think of when I picture a guy in organized crime. He certainly has the loyalty and respect qualities people tend to associate with organized crime families, but he's also a pretty earnest and all-around good dude. Ichiban sees the Arakawa family as a real family he's a part of more than a criminal syndicate. The game does a great job setting Ichiban's character up right off the bat. The last day of the year 2000 tells the story of how Ichi ended up joining the Arakawa family and introduces other important characters we'll be learning more about during the next 40 or so hours of story. New Year's Day comes and something unexpected happens. During the New Year's Eve celebration, a fight breaks out between an officer in the Arakawa family and an officer in a higher-ranking Yakuza family. The fight ends with the Arakawa officer shooting and killing the other officer. This could lead to major consequences for the Arakawa family. Masumi Arakawa, the patriarch, asks Ichiban to take the fall to ensure the survival of the family. Given Ichiban's loyalty, it's no surprise he accepts without hesitation. Ichi is promised a family to return to after his prison sentence is served.
P.S. The day you get out of prison, let's get that Peking duck we missed.
Boss, I'm so sorry! When I got into that fight, I wasn't even thinking about how long you had already been waiting for me. An extra 3 years I made you wait just because I did something stupid! I'm sorry I failed you. I held you up for so long, but I'm out now! I'm finally back!
The year is now 2019. Ichiban Kasuga is now a 40-something man who's getting out of prison for a crime he did not commit. Unfortunately, nobody is there to greet him. The Arakawa family has moved on, and he is no longer welcome in their ranks. Ichiban cannot accept this and ends up getting shot and left in a literal garbage pile. A nurse turned homeless person named Namba saves his life. Now Ichiban is left with more questions and no answers, and must start straight from the bottom to figure out the events of the last 18 years that led him to getting shot and tossed aside. This is where the bulk of the main story in Yakuza Like a Dragon begins. From here, anyone who's played a JRPG could most likely predict where this is going. Ichiban will assemble a ragtag group of misfits, the plot will thicken, the stakes will be raised, which will lead to a big finale. Most video game genres have a formula we can boil any game down to, but Yakuza manages to play around with that formula just enough to make it interesting and fresh, while at the same time familiar. For me, the reason the story of Yakuza succeeds is because of the almost constant tonal shift of everything going on. One minute, the story plays at 100% straight. The drama and stakes are at an all-time fever pitch. And the next minute, something so over the top and absurd happens, I would have to take my hands off the controller and kind of readjust my brain. There's more than just crazy serious and crazy ridiculous too. If that were the case, the game would be more LOL random than good. There are moments in the story where Ichiban's earnestness and can-do attitude shines through, where the seriousness takes a more heartfelt and compassionate approach. They also do this in the ridiculous moments too. Because of this, I never knew what I was going to get during the story or side stories. I would think, oh, I see where this is going, but I could never predict how it would get there. That's a fresh and interesting feeling to have, especially when I find most JRPGs to be all too predictable. As hackish as A Little Something for Everyone is in games reviews, there is some truth to that in the story of Yakuza. It's a standard hero's journey, a family drama, a crime drama, a slapstick comedy, an absurdist comedy, a political drama, a slice of life story, and a thriller all at the same time while never going so off the rails that I couldn't keep up. The story beats are enhanced by Yakuza's overall style. Style is important, especially in RPGs and even more so with JRPGs, I'd say. Turn-based games predate video games in some ways, so it's only natural that these systems would find their way in video games and flourish in the medium. Because these types of games have been around for so long, it's only natural elements need to evolve in some sort of way to maintain interest and relevancy. JRPGs have managed this pretty well by becoming more stylized. Nowadays, JRPGs have adapted the anime style that's only grown in popularity here in the States over the last few decades. It's almost rooted in the genre at this point. Akira Toriyama, the creator of Dragon Ball, is also the artist of one of the most long-lasting and beloved JRPG institutions, Dragon Quest. I would even say the anime style is just as influential to the JRPG as turn-based mechanics and epic stories. What does any of this have to do with Yakuza? Well, quite a bit. Yakuza sort of has an anti-style compared to its contemporaries. Yakuza rejects the teenage anime characters found in most JRPGs. Adachi, one of Ichiban's companions, is 1 year away from retirement, closely reaching senior citizen level age. Characters in Yakuza look like actual people. Using Adachi again as an example, he's just an ex-cop old guy, not some ancient martial arts master or anything like that, just an old guy. Instead of going for the anime style, Yakuza goes for a more grounded and realistic one, which on the surface doesn't seem all that stylish. However, because a vast majority of JRPGs go for that anime style, when Yakuza bucks that trend for a more regular one, it sort of appears irregular. The regular irregularity of Yakuza shines during the side stories and the gameplay. Because the game is set in modern-day Japan, the traditional JRPG styles and tropes must be tossed out to work in this setting. A good example of this is the job system. It would not make sense to have standard jobs one would expect, like knight, black mage, white mage, fighter, ninja, etc. Instead, Ichiban and the gang have to literally go to the employment office to change their job. Most of these jobs are actual jobs or based around the character's backstory. For instance, instead of the standard magic user, Nanba is a homeless person. Instead of throwing fireballs and casting spells, he's doing the blow liquor into a Zippo move. throwing bird food so pigeons swarm and damage enemies, and using his stank-ass breath to lower foes' defenses. Instead of a knight or warrior, a character can become a construction foreman with a great sledgehammer, or a SWAT-inspired enforcer with a riot shield and a baton. Some of the other jobs include chef, musician, dominatrix, fortune teller, and breakdancer. This trend doesn't just end with the job system, though. Since it wouldn't make sense for a game to have a bestiary with tons of magical creatures, Yakuza gives us a bunch of wacky humans for Ichiban to fight. A traditional summon system is replaced with calling up a friend using the Poundmates app on your smartphone.
Let's get nutty!
In some ways, even in combat, the tonal shifts used in the storytelling affect the battles as well. Turn-based battles go from super intense and stressful to crazy absurd and funny. I've never played a JRPG that looks and feels quite like Yakuza Like a Dragon, and its unique style added to the fun I was having with it. Yakuza's style distinguishes itself from the others in the genre and manages to pull it off. The glue that keeps everything together in Yakuza Like a Dragon is the game's self-awareness. From the characters to the story to the combat, Yakuza knows what it is and wants to let the players in on it. The majority of this is through Ichiban. Ichiban sees the world through a lens of video game logic. In fact, he sees the world specifically through a lens of JRPG video game logic. Right off the bat, in the first 10 minutes or so of the game, after the player's first fight, during some dialogue, another character asks Ichiban a question. If you can easily beat up these guys, why do you let them get hits in? This is sort of a meta question about turn-based game mechanics. Ichiban has a rather matter-of-fact answer to this question. When I fight, I like to pretend I'm the hero in Dragon Quest.
A hero? Sure. I pretend I'm a hero when I fight. So what? When it's time to throw down, my brain just starts thinking in Dragon Quest terms. Ugh, again with the Dragon Quest? What's so great about it? Everything. It's an epic and dangerous journey, and that's exactly how I see real life. You do know you're a freaking Yakuza, right?
There are dozens of moments like this with Ichiban. He'll make a speech about doing the right thing and the power of friendship to a group of mafia bosses. He sees things like finding a job and making money as leveling up. He refers to his group of friends as his party. These moments come off as charming and funny too. For me, it works because of how the world responds to Ichiban's eccentricities, which is usually bewilderment at first. But Ichiban's persistent earnestness and all-around good dude energy eventually makes everyone around Ichiban tolerate it. The longer they stick around, they even start to accept it. And if they stick around even longer, they end up gleefully playing along with it. Gleefully playing along with JRPG concepts, expectations, and tropes is kind of a through line with Yakuza Like a Dragon. Sometimes self-awareness and trope subversion can come across as cynical, but in Yakuza, I feel like it comes from a place of love. The dev team behind Yakuza clearly have a knowledge and love of JRPGs, and I feel like they wanted to make a game for others who feel the same. Luckily for me, I happen to be one of those people. Now, I guess I should go into a few issues with the game. Keep in mind, these things did not bother me at all. Like I said, I was hooked instantly, and minor issues at that point got lost in what I think is a wonderful game. That said, I understand just because I love it, there may be some deal breakers for others that I'll go ahead and highlight. The turn-based combat is sort of all over the place. Literally all over the place. This game has random encounters and there are a lot of them. I know even turn-based RPG fans are kind of hating random encounters as of late, so be aware. The turn-based systems themselves are all over the place as well. There were times where certain skills, classes, enemies, bosses, everything just sort of felt a bit unbalanced and off. So, if the love of a turn-based RPG lives and dies on how perfect and solid the actual systems are themselves, you may want to be aware of that. Cutscenes. There are a lot of them. And they are long. Not directed by Hideo Kojima long, but expect to watch a bunch of 10 to 15 minute mini-movies. Again, I love the story, so for me, this was absolutely fine. But I know some people hate long cutscenes. And finally, the dreaded grind. It's not a true JRPG unless you're grinding. But seriously, there is a point during Yakuza where the game does force you to grind for levels. Luckily, during that time, they introduce a sort of battle arena to make the process fun and rewarding. To end this video, I just want to say that I'd recommend Yakuza Like a Dragon to anyone in spite of the fact that it's clearly not a game made for mass appeal. Yakuza is the type of game I like to make videos about. I try to review games as an experience and not as a list of categories I could rate on a 10 scale and average it out for an objective score. I'm not saying that's a bad way to do it either, but if people want that, they can go to Metacritic. I understand that Yakuza is not a perfect game, and is not for everyone. For me though, I had a perfect experience, and I hope more people have that experience with it. Yakuza Like a Dragon is my game of the year for 2020. Thanks for watching.